You are Locked On Trojans Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Locked On Trojans and Bruins postcast. This is such a big rivalry. We have to do a crossover, especially with Gavin being at the Rose Bowl for the game. I am Pete Fox, covering sports in LA, dating back to 2007 for ESPN LA and NBC Sports Radio. Been at many of these games, both at the Rose Bowl and at the Coliseum. Of course, Gavin Carlson does Angels. He does Bruins because he is a Bruin alum, hence the blue war paint on his face. How you feeling, buddy? Did you get wet over there? Oh, hold on real quick. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Trojans Bruin crossover postcast is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, no pressure. FanDuel.com to get started. How wet did you get over there? And honestly, how big of a thought did you have in your head that you guys were actually going to win that game?
Well, I'll start by saying it did not rain really at all. On the way to the Rose Bowl, it did. It was pretty chilly throughout the tailgating process. I was nervous it was going to be a rainy, muddy, ugly game. There was no rain, but based on how that first half went, still, you would have thought that it was a hurricane out there on the field. Absolutely no offense, a sloppy game, balls tipped everywhere, just no, not at all. It felt like this game was being played in the rainstorm that we might have expected coming into tonight. And then in terms of how this one ended, I'll be honest, just the way this rivalry is, and with it really never seeming to make sense, who's going to win this game? It's Caleb Williams versus Ethan Garbers, and UCLA wins by multiple touchdowns. USC at its lowest point at the Rose Bowl, and yet they're ahead going in late into this one. It never seems to make sense. I really thought, and maybe I was a homer, I thought UCLA was going to at least put up a bigger fight there on that final drive. Maybe they weren't going to be able to march all the way down and score a touchdown. I mean, how many trips to the red zone end with field goals for both sides? So part of me felt like UCLA was going to get down inside the 20 and stall out like both offenses did throughout the game. But, UCLA didn't even really put up a fight on that last drive there. Credit to USC's defense, and this one hurts. It does hurt. It certainly does.
Yeah, I described the first half in this game as a total pillow fight. I mean, it was just awful. I texted you, Amal, this game is brutal. This is an awful game. And it really felt like the Trojans defense was keeping them in this game. And if it wasn't for the defense, the Bruins would have won this game easily. The offense was just such a mess and discombobulated. And I hate to point fingers at one guy, but it's Jayden Maiava. He's just not ready. Did you ever see the movie Bull Durham? He's like Nuke LaLoosh. He's got the huge arm, but he can't control anything. And Lincoln Riley's trying to tell us, he adds a new element to the offense. What is that? Like bad passes inside the red zone? That's not an element that we want. And he can connect down the field. That's the only new element. So you add one and you remove two other ones. Not that Miller Moss was great, but at least Miller Moss inside the red zone could complete passes and have a little bit of feel. I don't feel like Jayden Maiava has any feel on his passes inside the red zone. 3 opportunities in the first half turned into 3 field goals because he would throw 3 bad passes and they kept trying to run that fade route. I'm like, you're just going to give this game away. It's ridiculous. If it wasn't for Woody Marks on the offense, 18 carries, 76 yards, another thing the Trojans couldn't live without in this game. So they figured out a way, and in spite of themselves, they won this game. The other big thing I think you could think about in this game was from a passing standpoint, that Makai Lemon is a better quarterback than Jayden Maiava. I mean, that was the biggest play of the game in the fourth quarter, where they ran the screen route to Makai Lemon, and he who did he hit? Kyron Hudson there, which got him down into the red zone, and they scored that first touchdown, which again was a pass from Maiava after scrambling around, and he found Ja Kobi Lane. That was a good pass. He made 2 or 3 good passes on the day from his 19 of 435. So, I'm not saying he won't be a good quarterback, but he's not there yet. And, compared to Caleb Williams, holy cow. How good would this team be if Caleb Williams was still on it? They have so many good receivers, and Woody Mark's a good running back. I would much rather have Ethan Garbers. That dude's for real. He can throw the ball, although kind of came undone in the fourth quarter in that last drive. He was 11 of 11 in the second half until that last drive when he threw 4 incompletions, which, again, as you pointed out, you can credit a lot to the USC defense there. But tell me about your guy, TJ Harden. What a game for him. The Bruins were averaging 85 yards on the ground throughout this season, and today he came out and banged out 98, looking really good, strong running.
Yeah, I mean, the turning point for this team offensively was getting the run game going. I mean, everyone expected you have a former UCLA legend running back coaching this team with TJ Harden coming back as one of the best players on the whole roster. And you expected this to be a team that was gonna trust Ethan Garbers as a veteran quarterback. You have some good weapons. J. Michael Sturdivant showed it today. Finally, a couple deep balls, fantastic contested catches. But it felt like this team was always going to be about how well can they run the ball to take pressure off of Garbers, to take pressure off of an awful pass blocking offensive line, and take pressure off of a defense that we didn't know what to expect either. And throughout the beginning of the season, we didn't see it. The Iowa game was a huge turning point where Iowa, a great running defense, a great running offense, and we completely flipped the script there. Didn't see it against Washington last week, but today it was back. It kept him in the game. There was multiple times in this game where it felt like he was going to break one free, and he got about 25, 30 yards. He doesn't have the breakaway speed. He's never going to, run out for 80 yards and break one through the house like, an electric running back might. But he got the difficult yards, which is why it hurt that much more when you can't convert a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1 into a first down late there in the fourth quarter. That's why it hurts. If this was the team from a couple weeks ago that couldn't run the ball, you get it. But this team was running the ball well the last couple of weeks, running the ball well tonight, and you get to a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1, and it's a handoff to Keegan Jones on 3rd down, the pass receiving running back of the two, not TJ Harden, and then a QB sneak with Ethan Garbers. So certainly some questions are going to be asked of Deshaun Foster, the running back as a head coach. Why didn't you give the ball to your bruising running back who had a great night? But it kept us in the game. And the moral of the story is, it just didn't happen in the red zone for really either team. And that's really what I think this game came down to at the end of the day. Red zone, neither team could do it. And although you're going to criticize him throughout the game, your quarterback came through, got some help from his running back the play before, but the quarterback came through with an electric play, evading pressure, finding a guy in the back of the end zone. And that was the 2 plays of the game there when neither offense could do anything in the red zone.
Yeah, it was surprising that the Bruins defense in the red zone is one of the worst in the league or in college football in general. And the Trojans couldn't make anything happen there in the red zone. You're thinking it's going to be easy for them, and they just made it so hard. You have to give a little bit of credit there to the Bruins defense because Jayden Maiava kept throwing passes to covered guys over and over again. And the Bruins defense was doing a nice job covering the Trojan receivers, when they got down into the red zone. And it didn't seem to change the play call. It didn't seem to change the fact that Maiava continued to throw the ball at covered receivers, sometimes double coverage. I was like, what is going on here? And then the Trojans had, opportunities to get turnovers that didn't work out, got close, they threatened, but it never came to fruition. So it was just an ugly game. It looked like it was nice and crowded, so I'm sure you had a good time. One question for you from BC, Gavin. He wants to know if you are stuck in an Uber.
No, I'm sitting in my parked car that I drove through the Rose Bowl, and I'm not lying. I sprinted out of the Rose Bowl. A lot of USC fans thought it was because I didn't want to hear it from them, although I did not want to. But the real reason is I sprinted to my car. I turned the car on. I got this light on so you can see me. The car is parked. I'm not in an Uber. And it's honestly going to be nice because This show's going to end in 20 more minutes, and everyone's already going to be gone, and I'm going to get home a lot. I'm going to get home at the same time if I left right now. So not an Uber, wasted some gas, paid about $55 for some parking, but maybe the football wasn't worth it, but certainly the atmosphere was, for sure. It still was an electric UCLA USC rivalry game. And as much as I hate USC, as someone who was born and raised a Bruin, the son of an alum, a lifelong fan, went to the school, covered the team, now doing this. As much as I hate USC, I want the rivalry to matter. And sure, it did not matter in terms of neither of these teams are going to really do anything this season. But to see every seat full other than the tarps, and to see the benches yelling at the opposing fans, that's what you want to see. So it was still, what a rivalry game should be between the two LA schools. And that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, I love the 2 home uniforms. I love that part of this tradition. The victory bell to the Trojans in the 94th meeting, a lot of tradition here. So it's always cool. I just was hoping for a better game. Look, I guess in the end, it's a pretty good game because it was close and it was exciting. And as you said, it really could have gone either way. But there was the first half, I just couldn't get over how bad both teams played. They played a little bit better in the second half. But as somebody who looks at the Trojans and covers the Trojans, it's still, this is a nice win, and they've won back-to-back games now, and they are bowl eligible. But it was just, for both of these teams, honestly, Gavin, it was supposed to be so much better this year. It was just not supposed to be what we've got here. A total pillow fight in the end that the Trojans figure out a way to stumble into the end zone and get the win there, 19-13, and again, to become bowl eligible. After the break, Gavin, I want to talk about the little activity that caused multiple flags where they got a little chippy. So we'll get into that after the break. It's the Locked On Trojans, Locked On Bruins crossover postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Trojans and Bruins crossover postcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 to 6 players from 2 different teams, and you can win up to 100 times your money if you go big for the Red Demons. I'm a bigger fan of the Green Goblins because they're easier to hit, and winning is always better than losing. You can now win up to, again, 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states. A lot of states that don't allow you to do other things like this: California, Florida, Georgia, Texas. Prize Picks is the best place to get your money in a hurry. They now offer Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win that first bet to receive that $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. And they offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineup. So download the app or go to the website, prizepicks.com, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks.com, LOCKEDONCollege. You'll get $50 instantly after your first $5 wager. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Pete Fox, Gavin Carlson. Gavin is at the Rose Bowl, sitting on the fourth fairway there in his car, not an Uber, waiting for the traffic to die down, and he'll be cruising out of there like lickety split. So you're welcome, Gavin. I'm helping you kill the time. So tell me about this scuffle at halftime. It got a little chippy. It seemed like it was all Bruins that were running their mouth, getting flags, 3 penalty flags, which pushed them back to the 5-yard line for this third quarter, second half kickoff. And of course, the Trojans went 3 and out, did nothing with that. But it was, as you pointed out, this is a great rivalry, one of the greatest in all of sports. We love seeing things like this, I think, as a spectator.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know how there can be a scuffle between two teams where an assistant coach gets a penalty and magically the other team wasn't involved. I mean, you can call me a homer if you want, Pete, but I'll be honest. I saw two benches that weren't going straight to the locker room, yelling back and forth at each other as you'd expect for a rivalry game. I don't know who the assistant coach was that gets a penalty. I've never seen three penalties on the same team. But what I saw is a UCLA bench that certainly was, further out on the field than the USC bench. USC was going towards their side. It was kind of funny. The game was chippy, and it's almost like the game needed that. It needed that kind of back and forth going into the locker room, because otherwise we might have seen another field goal fest in the second half that would have once again felt like the rainstorm game we might have been expecting and, got despite no rain. So maybe the game needed it. I don't know how there's not a single penalty on SC. And if there is, I think all of those penalties offset. So ironically, like you said, didn't end up having an impact on the game in terms of, it felt like, man, USC is going to take advantage of starting the ball at the 50. Their offense has been struggling. Is this finally what they need to actually go down the field and score a touchdown and not settle for another field goal? But, instead, it just ended up being a whole lot of nothing, kind of like most of this game was. And unfortunately, kind of like what the rest of the country is going to think this rivalry game is, starting at 7:30, ending at 11, with two teams that are barely sniffing a bowl game instead of talking about making it into the first ever 12-team playoff.
Yeah, I was joking that they were yelling at each other. You stink. No, you stink. You stink more. No, well, that's true, but right now you are the worst. No, you're bad. You're worse than we are. So there wasn't a lot of we're gonna win this game. It's like, please let us try to win this game. It was just a lot of I don't know. To me, I'm not a complete believer in the play calling from Lincoln Riley. I watch and I say, he's supposed to be some offensive genius, and the play calling, aside from the screen pass from Maiava to Makai Lemon and then the receiver option pass, that was the only good play call I saw all day. It was just a lot of let's keep throwing bad passes into covered players. There wasn't a lot of interesting dynamic play calling. So I don't know if Lincoln Riley is becoming a victim of all of the criticism that he's receiving this year, but I'm not seeing any brilliance from him. And on the other side of things, Deshaun Foster to me also seems overmatched. I'm not trying to criticize the Bruins because of the rivalry aspect. It doesn't seem like, and I know he's not calling the offensive plays and all that, but it also seemed fairly one-dimensional. It didn't seem very dynamic. As you mentioned, that Sturdivant character is a hell of a receiver. They didn't throw the ball to him nearly enough. So, and then you got the tight end Matabo, who scored the touchdown. Like, that guy is a beast. Throw him the ball more. To me, it seemed like they were trying to run the ball a little too much. Sturdivant only 5 receptions, 117 yards, and Matabo, they only threw it to him twice. One of them for a touchdown. So, on both sides, I felt like the play calling was lackluster at best.
Yeah, it felt like conservative play calling for both teams, but for different reasons. For UCLA, like you're saying, it feels like UCLA, unfortunately, as much as I don't want to say it, from a talent perspective, is still slightly overmatched. We know how bad Chip Kelly was at recruiting when he was here. Deshaun Foster was trying to turn that around. But despite USC continuing to underperform every season, they're still in the top 20 in the recruiting class instead of the top 50. So you're always going to expect them to be slightly more talented than UCLA. So that's the conservative play calling for UCLA. I mean, think about all their big plays. Other than TJ Harden on the ground, it's a quick screen to TJ Harden. It's a quick screen to Matabo in the red zone for a touchdown. And then it's a couple deep shots to J. Michael Sturdivant, who is a guy we didn't even recruit, got in the transfer portal, has NFL third round, second round pick level talent, but even he has been underused. So yes, talent very limited, leads to conservative play calling for UCLA. For SC, I think it all comes down to the quarterback. Like you're saying, I think I'm a little less hard on him than you are in terms of how he looked throwing the football, but the play calling was a lot more limited than when Miller Moss is there. An experienced guy, able to make multiple reads. With SC, Tonight, it was just same thing, a lot of quick screens, or like you said, just contested balls deep down the field. We didn't see many. For me, the way you know a quarterback is locked in, really understanding the scheme is when it's not the first read, it's the second read, and it's a throw for 15 yards. There was none of that tonight, right? Occasionally, it would be look down the field, check it down to the running back for 3 or 4, but there was never a look left, wait a second, look right, and there's someone 15 yards down the field in the seam. There was none of that. Lincoln Riley didn't give him much of a chance to do that. So I understand the lack of aggressiveness on his point, switching to a less experienced quarterback. But if you're going to do that, I obviously, if you're an SC fan, you need to see more creativity to help him out. And it wasn't until the second to last play of that touchdown drive, like we keep talking about, which saves Lincoln Riley's job. Maybe I'm exaggerating. I know it's a lot of money to buy him out, but if you lose to UCLA again for a second straight year when you're still the better team, I know how USC fans are. They'd be coming for his head. So, a little trick play to the running back, to the receiver, and some QB brilliance saves, SC Nation from completely ripping into Lincoln Riley for now. But yeah, it's underwhelming to score 19 points when he's supposed to be one of the best offensive minds in the entire country.
Yeah, there was that big play to Makai Lemon in the first half for 64 yards. That was a nice throw, nice catch, nice run. There was a few plays. I'm more focusing on the red zone tries that were all bad. And that's kind of where the nutshell of what I'm coming away with when I look at Maiava's performance today. Yeah, he won the game and he made a few good plays when he had to. And that's all that ultimately matters. But in the end, if you want this team to go to the next level, we got one more game against Notre Dame. They're going to get smoked by the Fighting Irish. And then they go to some meaningless bowl game in December 14th or whatever. And then they look to next year and say, all right, the defense is considerably improved and the offense has a ton of talent, but they just don't have a good quarterback. So is it Miller Moss? Maybe, probably not. Is it Jayden Maiava next year? I don't know. Maybe, probably. Or do they try to find somebody else with the transfer portal? It's free agency out there. So I'm part of it for me is I'm already looking on to next season since this season is basically over. Because the fact is that the receivers for the Trojans had decent games today. I thought Kyron Hudson was good, 6 catches, 79 yards. Makai Lemon, 2 catches, 69 yards. Woody Marks is their leading receiver still, 4 catches, 25 yards. Lake McCree, a couple for 36. Deuce Robinson had an off game. Zach Branch had an off game, which, again, it seems like every week it's another couple of guys that were good the prior week and this week didn't show up. And I don't know if that's play calling or what, or just too many different options. So
can we talk about Zachariah Branch for a second? This guy last season was showing us, Tyreek Hill type things, Tavon Austin in college type things in terms of dynamic ability, kick returns, punt returns. Why have I not heard his name at least having 6 catches? I don't care if you throw him 7 quick bubble screens and they all get blown up. This guy's got to touch the ball 10 times every game. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And especially a game like today where it's so ugly, where neither team is showing anything, and you've got a young quarterback who's just getting the ball out of his hands right away or throwing it into contested, sideline throws. I thought there could have been 4, 5, 6 more. Where's the jet sweep? Where's the end around? Where's the quick screen? They should be using him in motion, pre-snap, getting him the ball. I don't understand it. As a UCLA fan, I was glad he didn't get the ball. But I still think Zachariah Branch has Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown at Oklahoma level potential in terms of just breaking games open. And I don't know why it didn't happen this year for him the same way it was starting to happen in his electric freshman year last season.
I totally, absolutely agree. He started to see it. We started to see a little bit last week. He got his first touchdown, got a handful of catches, and then you're right. This week, 2 catches, 13 yards with a long of 8 yards. I don't know. I just feel like I've said this week after week. I feel like they just have too many options. Deuce Robinson is a hell of a receiver. 1 catch today. Quentin Joyner, the running back, had 2. Lake McCree is a tight end who's a viable, good hands receiver. Makai Lemon and Kyron Hudson are probably the two most dynamic other than Zach Branch. So I would like to see just more continuity. Let's figure out who the 2 or 3 best are and work those guys every week and get them more comfortable with the quarterback. This new quarterback that we are not familiar with. So yeah, there's just a lot of questions. After the break, we haven't talked a whole lot about the defense. We'll get into both sides of the defensive aspect of this game as the Trojans win at 19-13 over the Bruins. I'm Pete Fox, Gavin Carlson, at the Rose Bowl after the game, waiting for the traffic to die down. Trojans come away now are 6-5 bowl eligible, and the Bruins are 4-7 after this one. We'll talk about the defense after the break. It's the Locked On Trojans and Bruins crossover postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Trojans and Bruins postcast is brought to you by Z-Biotics. Pre-alcohol probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel much better tomorrow. Here's how you use it. Drink pre-alcohol for the best results. Make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, you drink responsibly. You pace yourself, you hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. And step 3, you enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to hit the day. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund you your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege. Use the code lockedoncollege at checkout for 15% off. Tonight's show also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. When you get to the page where you make your bets, it's all right there for you in one convenient location. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 of bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. The 94th renewal of one of the greatest rivalries in all of sports, USC and UCLA at the Rose Bowl, both wearing their home uniforms, which is another cool part of this. The Trojans bring home the victory bell, and I believe have won 7 now of the last 11, although the Bruins won last year. So the Trojans have a bit of an edge, but that's basically even over the last 11 years. As far as the defense, 3 sacks for the Trojans and 2 for the Bruins. Mason Cobb had 7 tackles for the Trojans. Mascarenas Arnold 6, and 1 of the sacks for the Bruins. Carson Sester 12 total tackles. They were raving about him on the broadcast. 10 tackles solo. He's a special teamer that I guess worked his way into the starting lineup as a linebacker. That guy is getting after it. Do you see him taking the step to the next level?
I do. Yeah. One of the best stories in not only UCLA history recently, not only the Big Ten this year, really the whole country. This guy was not even under any sort of radar of being a starter in the. No one imagined this happening, that he would be getting snaps, because honestly, the linebacking core for UCLA might be the deepest of the whole roster. Hey Madrano, Olufemi Oladejo, even Ali Cajo, elite linebackers in this roster. You can really expect Carson Sester to play a role, and he goes from walk-on to being the leading tackler, not only for UCLA, not only for the Big Ten, but for the country throughout this season as well. I've heard from multiple people that, this is a guy who might be going in the middle round of the draft now. a guy who might have been preparing to get that UCLA degree, which is better than a USC degree, I have to say, and have a nice life with that. But instead, he's going to be having a nice life in the NFL, it looks like. So obviously happy for him. You talked about the both quarterbacks getting sacked a couple of times. I think both quarterbacks could have gotten sacked probably 2 or 3 more times. Both Garbers and the USC quarterback evading pressure throughout the night. We're very used to that here in Westwood. The offensive line has been atrocious, particularly in pass blocking throughout the season. But I thought 2 defenses that, showed some talent. These Big Ten schools like to think that UCLA would have talented linebackers and defensive linemen and that it's all defensive backs and quarterbacks. No. Both front sevens are pretty talented. They showed that tonight. And unfortunately, USC's on that last drive, especially, got in Garber's face a couple times. Garber's had to evade pressure on 4th down and rush to throw there to fall short.
Yeah, the Trojans held them there. A big one in the 4th quarter, a 4th and 1 on the sneak, and they stoned him and got the ball back. I think that was a big, impactful moment in the game that helped the Trojans get this victory 19-13. Well, Gavin, it's been fun. I see you've got a carload full of people there. Maybe you're the Uber driver and you got to get those people home. So they're probably sick of waiting for you to talk sports with me for a half hour. They're like, can we go home now, please? That's what my wife and family do when I have to go do that. Can you just wait while I go do the show real quick? They're like, the only one that cares is my wife's grandson. He was on the show with me last night for a little bit. He's very nice. He's very into it. Did the little introduction in the beginning for me, and then stood in the background, kind of peeking his head in. So you want to say hi to your friends in the back there? You can turn the camera on them and put them on the screen. Give them a little show, give them a little time on camera. A whole car full of people there. You better charge them something. You help pay for the parking, right? Group effort.
But trust me, yes, that $55 parking will be split 5 ways. Absolutely. Trust me.
All right, buddy. Good stuff. I guess we will talk again. Baseball season, since you're not doing basketball. We could do the Rams and Chargers play this year? I don't think they do they?
I don't think they do, but what I will say is, as someone who now works for the Clippers, I'm loving the
Let me tell you this. As you're trying to talk about the Clippers, your internet signal is just disintegrating. So we'll call it there. I think he was trying to say something. He works for the Clippers. I know that. And he was trying to say something about the Clippers postcast, which I will be doing again tomorrow. So Gavin, drive safely, get those people home safely. And since you're frozen, I'm just going to say this. Fight on, buddy. Fight on. 9 clap. 9 clap for me. Or is it 7? I always forget the number. 8 clap. All right. That's going to do it for the Locked On Trojans postcast. I just love the frozen Gavin with the war paint. It's classic. He can probably hear me, but can't say anything. He's gone. There he goes. Gavin Carlson does Locked On Rams, Locked On Angels, and Locked On Bruins. I'm Pete Fox. This is the Locked On Trojans postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. The place to hang out when every game is done. Trojans win at 19-13, become bowl eligible. They're now 6-5 and 4-5 in the conference. Wrap up the season next week at the Coliseum against the top 10 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So who knows? Maybe they can pull off an upset. I don't see a lot of possibility of that happening, but you never know. Anything is possible. You got to play the game. So we will talk after that game. And again, back at it tomorrow with Clippers postcast. They're in Philly to take on the lowly Sixers. That game starts around 3:00, I believe. So I will catch you after that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being a part of Locked On and allowing us to be your source for your team every day. Have a good night.